Hello everyone, my name is Landon and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be going over my top 5 favorite horror novels not written by Stephen King. Because you all know that if I was going to do my top 5 favorite horror novels, it would probably be just a list of Stephen King with probably one exception. So today, I'm going to be doing my 5 favorite horror novels that have not been written by Stephen King. So, all that has to, for a book to qualify in this, is it just has to have a horror element to it that actually, scares you in some way. Like, a supernatural element or a scary factor to it. So, without further ado, let's get into this. With the number 5 spot, we have Tock by Dean Koontz. This was probably the funnest horror novel I've ever read. It had funny elements, it had very actually scary horror elements, and I thought it was some of Dean Koontz's best writing. I'm not a huge Koontz fan, but I thought Tock it's definitely my favorite by him. I did really like Tock. It was a really fun book to read, and it was actually scary. Tock is about a man who one day gets a doll at his doorstep, and then the next night he sees a message on his door, or on his computer, and the doll is sitting next to the computer, I'm pretty sure. I read this many months back. Let me just read the book. Yeah, he hears an odd popping sound, and there's a stitching over where the heart is, and there's an odd popping sound. So obviously, it's supposed to symbolize the heart. And what did the thing say? Yeah, the deadline is dawn. On his computer screen, it said the deadline is dawn, and it's just a random doll. He doesn't know where it came from. He doesn't know how it got there, and he doesn't know what to do. And time is running out. So he's got to figure out a way to stop what's happening, and it's a really, really fun book. At the number 4 spot, we have Last Days by Adam Neville. Now, I was deciding on whether to put The Ritual or The Last Days on this list, and I decided to go with The Last Days. The Ritual is another one of Adam Neville's novels. You may have heard of it. It's his most famous work. But I chose Last Days because it has a scarier element to it. It's more of a paranormal factor, and The Ritual is more of like a monster movie type factor. And Last Days, Adam Neville writes great suspense. I've read 5 of his books. I have 2 more behind me. 5 of his books, and Last Days and No One Gets Out Alive were chock full of suspense, and this one was definitely the scariest. It's about a documentary director, what's his name? Kyle Freeman. And it's sort of like a Blair Witch style-esque book, but it's a book, so it's not like found footage. And the places that he goes to investigate the cult of the Last Days, which is the cult that the documentary is going to be about, when he visits the places, you can really feel like there's actually something there. Like, Adam Neville writes it so well that, you feel like you're being watched, or you feel like something is gonna come, but you don't know when. And the ending of the book is great. It's a great journey the entire way. I really had a hard time putting it down. It was a very, very good horror story. At the number 3 spot, we have Everything is Horrible Now by Edward Lorne. Everything is Horrible Now is his newest release, and it was really, really pulse-pounding horror. The entire journey, you just felt on the edge of your seat like something bad was going to happen. There wasn't a moment to rest in this book. With the jail cell scene, with the cornfield scene. I can't even get into the cornfield scene without getting into spoilers, but if you have read the book, the cornfield scene was terrifying. I was literally, shaking at the cornfield scene. It was very, very scary. Everything is Horrible Now is about a small town called Bay's End, and the preacher in town named not Father Callahan. I'm freaking thinking of the I'm thinking of the Dark Tower. I literally read this book the last week. Why can't I remember his name? Why can't I remember his name? I'm so sorry. I'm so bad with names. What was his... Father George, that's what it was. Father Callahan, that's Dark Tower. Father George kills himself, and no one knows why. But he does utter these final words. Everything is horrible now. This quote, or these 4 words, pop up throughout the entire book, and every time it pops up, something bad happens. Especially, I'm not sure if it pops up in the cornfield scene, but the cornfield scene is terrifying. The jail cell scene with one of the characters is even scarier, and the ending literally will just chill you to the bone. And that's what's so great about Edward. Oh, excuse me. That's what's so great about Edward Norton. He does that in his books, and Everything Is Horrible Now is him at his top game of horror. At the number 2 spot, we have NOS 4A2, or Nosferatu, by Joe Hill. NOS 4A2 is essentially a vampire story, but not your typical vampire story. It's about a young woman named Vic McQueen, and her power to travel to certain places and find things that she's looking for. And one day she stumbles across the vampire of the book named Charles Manx. He tries to abduct her and it fails, and years later when he comes out of a coma, he goes back on a spree of trying to find her. And he has many ways of getting to her. And it's very, very pulse-pounding. It is a really fun book to read. Christmas Land, when it's being described, it's really fun. It's horrifyingly fun. Like, it's scary to read, but at the same time, you can't help yourself but, think, oh, that sounds fun. But, yeah, Joe Hill does a great job with his characters. This is definitely his best works. It's one of my favorite novels of all time. Yeah. At the number 1 spot, we have The Terror by Dan Simmons. This is my favorite novel of all time. Therefore, it is my favorite horror novel of all time, not written by Stephen King. The Terror is about 2 ships, one the SS Erebus and one the SS Terror, and it is about their journey across the Arctic to get to the they're trying to get to a certain coast. I can't remember, but I don't want to look it up right now. But they're traveling across the Arctic, and winter comes at full force, freezing their boats on the ice, and they're trying to find a way off the ice. But at the same time, there's something out there. There's something out there hunting them down. They don't know what it is. They don't know if it's a man. They don't know if it's a monster. And the entire book, up until halfway through, we don't know what this thing is, and we're trying to figure it out. And it is such a thrilling ride. Dan Simmons does a great job with characters. He has one of my favorite characters of all time in this book. And the villains aren't even the monster. Sometimes the villains are their own crewmates of the captain. They can be the villains themselves. And just so much, it's hard to read it sometimes because there's a lot of stuff about cannibalism and turning on each other, and it is very, very scary. And I recommend this book to anybody. So, if you guys have not read The Terror and you are a huge horror fan, I definitely encourage you to read The Terror. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you're new. Let me know what your 5 favorite horror novels, not by Stephen King, are in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.